Hop on the bus to Badassville. Fruitful Fridays with Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day and Weekend Vibes. Let's take a bite of some Apple a Day topics. Certifying badasses, one podcast at a time.
That's right. We are certifying badasses one podcast at a time. I got to tell you, I don't even have a script today or any articles to share with you. I wanted to just be completely, brutally authentic and transparent with you today. I missed Wednesday Wisdom because I had a little family medical emergency. So I'm just going to share this with you because there are some lessons to be learned. And I do have some apples, at least for you, for Fruitful Friday. I've been kind of doing the podcast a little bit more delayed now because as I've moved over here to Michelle's place and I'm interacting with other people and I'm getting fresher ideas, and I like to be very, very timely as I push out content for all you badasses out there. And so I'm working on some different marketing ideas and concepts of getting more social media engagement happening, and I love it here. And I started a grief group, and I love that too. And you think I was crazy if I sharing with you that I love grief, but I do love grief because it is very, very heartwarming and purposeful to be present and help somebody new to the club. And it is a club that nobody wants to be in. And I share the stories of how I've experienced grief in my life a few times. So this, I don't necessarily want this to be a sad podcast. It is a hopeful one today. But I wanted to be honest with you, because I go out and I promote successful Badassery, and I give all sorts of tips and ideas and concepts and methods on how to maintain a positive attitude despite what's happening in your life. And it struck me that I needed to share with you that, even a badass needs to ask for help and can show some vulnerability, and that they're a bit fragile and still make an impact because that's what happened to me. I'll just share briefly the story about why I'm sharing this. So, if you've been listening to me any amount of time or know me on a personal level, maybe I haven't even really shared it, but I was sharing a while ago that, due to all of the COVID and the pandemic and all of the restrictions that have occurred, I moved my parents in with me, and it was one of these things that was in an inevitable thing that was going to happen. I was going to be taking my parents in. This, and I don't really say this accelerated it because I was kind of mentally and physically prepared for them to come and stay with me anyway. The plan actually was put into place, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago. But over the course of COVID and everything else that was going on, it became evident that they needed to do this now. So now I'm caregiving for my 83-year-old parents. Now, it's not the kind of caregiving that you would imagine yet when you think 83-year-olds. Wow, they don't need the day-to-day care management and all of that. They're still kind of aware. They're not driving, so they're homebound. They can drive. Well, my mom can drive, but not my dad. And so there's challenges there. So over the weekend, this past weekend, I started noticing some symptoms with my mom. Now, and I was keeping an eye on her, and it became very evident on Monday morning that I needed to take her to the ER. And there was just so many different, aspects about that, because there is the COVID scare. She is 83, and what I'm taking her to the hospital for is a respiratory issue. And she also is in atrial fibrillation, which I know very much about because that's what my heart issue was. But I also know that at 83 years old, it's common for her to be in Afib. So she's got the breathing thing, and she can't breathe, and she's presenting with symptoms of a heart attack. So I take her to the ER, but I can't go in with her because there's some more of the COVID restrictions. So I have to sort of trust that my mom's going to be able to give them the information that she needs to give them and not downplay her symptoms, which is what she tends to do. Meanwhile, my dad has some skin cancer on his arm that needs to be removed, and I don't know how it got postponed. Well, I do know how. My mom took him to the appointment and got lost to the surgeon, and then missed the appointment and had to reschedule. And so this was the day that she'd had the appointment rescheduled. Well, it's skin cancer. We can't leave it alone. So let's get that taken care of. So after I dropped my mom off at the ER to find out what's happening with her, I'm taking my dad to the surgeon to have the consult about getting him scheduled for surgery. Meanwhile, trying to reschedule and navigate my psychotherapy practice and get my clients moved so I can take care of matters at home. I'm sure that you can imagine this is extremely stressful and emotional. These are my parents, and I'm watching them die in front of me. Not an easy thing to be doing. And I also have to share, I know I get a little vulnerable when I talk about this, but these are my parents. But I also share that my dad's been my business partner for 40 years, and he is not the man that he used to be. He's suffering from Parkinson's and dementia, and he doesn't get around much, and he literally sits and watches television all day long, and it's heartbreaking to me. Now, people might ask, well, why don't you spend more time with them? Well, I spend as much time as I possibly can. But, I also have to provide services for my psychotherapy clients, and I have to earn a living because there is no financial backup. So Monday and Tuesday were pretty eventful, so make a long story short about my mom. I mean, there was the other thing where she got impatient waiting at ER and insisted on leaving. And so she left against medical advice. And then I had to get her back to her cardiologist the next morning. And so when we got back to the cardiologist, basically discovered that she'd had an asthma attack, probably, and was over-treating it with the medication and the nebulizer to help clear her bronchial pathways. And so because of the Afib and because of the medication that she was using to control the breathing, she was overdosing on it, and it was increasing her heart rate, causing her to have some distress. So they had wanted to keep her in overnight for observation, but the ER was full and there were no beds. And rather than sitting there and be patient until there was a bed, I had to go pick her up. And so this is what we discovered. So now this has set in motion a lot more stress tests regarding my mom and her heart. Meanwhile, getting my dad the pre-op stuff that he needs so that he can go to surgery, and coming to the just in your face realization that I need help. I need help. And I have help. I do have family, but family also has other things that have to be done, So it's not as if I'm not getting resources that I need, but this is my gig. This is what I have to do. So anyway, so here at Michelle's place, they had some resources for me, but Monday and Tuesday I had to not Coda's take off and then move therapy clients and then move the therapy clients to different hours while I dealt with the stuff with my mom and dad. Meanwhile, I've got a grief class on Wednesday night. And they had offered to, make all the arrangements to cancel the class so that I could take care of matters at home. But I knew, because I am badass, I needed those people as much as they needed me to be there. And so I didn't intend to even share about what had just occurred, because this class has just begun. It was only the third week, and majority of the people don't know me. I'm just a facilitator who's running a grief class, and they're the ones who are grieving. Fair enough, that is my job. But you know what? The moment I sat down to begin the grief group, I just was compelled to be authentic and transparent with them because I was feeling off. Yes, I have learned over the years to compartmentalize and to be professional and to keep my personal problems and my life stuff out of the workplace. And this is what your bosses and you as an employer always want your people to do. Of course, it makes sense, right? We don't need our personal problems dragged into work. Well, this was a situation I couldn't help it. And I actually saw it as a benefit to be completely authentic. And, you never know what kind of an impact it's going to have on somebody else, because it wasn't until we finished up the group and, they all received me very well. I felt very supportive when I just said, I'm just feeling kind of off tonight and I'm a little fragile and this is why. And I shared with them why, and they were, and then we began the regular, our regular program, regular programming, and, coming back, I asked them to stop looking at me and just let me wipe the tears, and then we moved on. And the impact was later is that when one of the participants sent me a text, I said, thank you for being so transparent and showing us your vulnerability. That is true leadership. And because what you demonstrated to me when I'm trying to juggle so many plates and keep them on the air and then not let anybody know that I'm a little overwhelmed, you just gave me permission that sometimes badasses need to ask for support too. And I just felt that was what I needed to share today, completely unscripted. This isn't an article from somebody else, but I wanted to share about this experience with you because, that's why Wednesday Wisdom didn't happen. I had to make a decision that I just didn't have the mind frame or the emotional capacity to even come up with something at that moment. Wednesday, because I would have done that Monday or Tuesday. And what was I going to do? Abandon my mom and my dad and come over to my office here at Michelle's place and, try to be clever and funny and badassery? I wasn't in that mindset. I had to kind of do some self-care, and I do extensive self-care. I do. This is not me complaining about the stressful life that I have created for myself. No. Not at all. And this is where the apples come in. So I have a few apples for you that I do want to share because it is still Fruitful Friday, and right now on the Apple a Day on the podcast side, I'm featuring the power of no. All right. So if you haven't checked out the Apple a Day podcast, and please do, it's on the same platform. You just search for Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day and you'll find it. And so we're doing the power of no right now. But, so here's one of them. We hear a lot in business and careers about being authentic. And many people claim that they are authentic in all that they do. And that should be what we all strive for. So when we say no to phoniness, we become genuine and real, sincere and honest. How many times have you had a conversation with someone and you just felt a sense of phoniness about them? It happens a lot. Your team and your closest friends will know too. Former basketball player Larry Bird said, leadership is getting players to believe in you. If you tell a teammate you're ready to play as though you're able to, you'd better go out there and do it. Players will see right through a phony. So let people see the cracks in your life. Keep it real. Be so transparent and authentic that your team, your staff, your coworkers and associates will believe every word you say and that you will give it your all. Now, this is the experience. This is what I got back from these people when I shared what was going on in my life this past week. I got support, I got understanding, and I got them to do, I got shown that I showed some leadership and somebody else was given permission to be able to be transparent and authentic in their workplace too. I got to tell you, that kind of flipped the format for me now, didn't it? Because it's pretty badass. So here's another one for you. Let's say no to fear. There is so much fear hanging over all of us with the events, the political events that are going on, the medical events, the environmental events, the weather events. I mean, it is everywhere. So let's say no to fear. What do you fear the most? Now, right now, it could be a fear of rejection or fear of success. Or what about the poverty, the homelessness, the unhealthiness, any kind of failure? Well, fear is a false evidence appearing real. In his inaugural address, President Franklin D. Roosevelt said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." The Bible offers a beautiful passage and message on fear, found in Luke chapter 12, verses 22 through 24. Do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat, nor about your body, what you will put on. For life is more than food, and the body is more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. And how much more value are you than the birds? How do you overcome and say no to fear? Embrace it. Challenge it. Seek that which you fear most and you will overcome it. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. It's a quote from Jack Canfield. Now, when we're fearful about the political climate or the environment, the actual climate, or the health climate, how do you combat that? I always tell people to educate yourself then, or volunteer, or do something to get involved to combat the fear. Even if you are one of the people that fear even leaving your home, you can still make calls. You can still do some research. You can still be productive and do something to help reduce the fear and reduce the impact, the negative impact it's having on your body and your brain. Because remember, I tell you, the longer we let these things simmer and go, the more unhealthier we are going to get, which is why I always encourage just take the break and listen to music, find those happy emotions, and give yourself that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. It's so good for you. It's not going to solve the problems, but it will help reduce the negative impacts that it's having on your body. And also, I want to remind you to say no to being a victim. It's time for you to break free from that victim mentality. American author John W. Gardner wrote, "Self-pity is easily the most destructive of the non-pharmaceutical narcotics. It is addictive, it gives momentary pleasure, and separates the victim from reality." I often see a lot of victimization when working with clients. The need to blame others for our lives not working, feeling as though we have no choice about the direction our life has taken, allowing someone else to bully us into feeling as though we are powerless. It's time for you to say no to being a so-called victim. Stop allowing other people or circumstances to have your power. Nobody is that powerful. Say no to being a victim mentality by giving yourself a break, practicing gratitude, accepting what is, and taking responsibility for your own life. How many times have you looked at your calendar and wanted to say yes, only to find out that you had a conflict in your schedule? When we have children, we want them to experience as many positive activities as time allows. But oftentimes the commitments are so overwhelming. Does baseball or cheerleading interfere with their ability to do their homework or have a social life? Do these activities prevent your family from quality vacation time? And how about your work obligations? Do you take on too much because you're afraid to say no? And then you find yourself working longer hours or taking work home. Take a look at your calendar for the season, the year, and be willing to prune back the obligations that are not essential to living a balanced life. Extracurricular activities are important, but when they take over your life, something else will suffer. You need to appreciate all aspects of your life, mind, body, and spirit, and learn to integrate them so you live in balance. Life is too short to have so much going on that you can't appreciate it. And I wanted to share all of these with you, these apples, because they are words of wisdom. You could get them on the Apple a Day podcast, but also, listen, I'm not complaining that I don't have balance. I do. I practice exactly what I preach. Anytime I'm telling you or sharing with you some tidbit of information, I'm not giving you anything that hasn't already worked for me. I do have balance. But this event with my mom taught me I have to recalibrate now. I have to make some adjustments and some shifts. I've had to move some things around financially in my budget so that I can afford to pay for a caregiver that can help manage some of the medical issues that are going on, because it's going to be ongoing. I was counting how many doctors my parents have, and between the two of them, there were 6 doctors, but they also share a couple of those doctors. So it's not just 6 doctor's appointments, it's probably 8 or 10 doctor's appointments that may be happening every month, plus the labs and the follow-ups and just the medication that needs to be managed. It's a lot for little old me to handle all by myself, and I am not a medical professional. I'm a mental health professional. So I can see what's going on with them emotionally, but medically, I'm not the expert. But this weekend, I knew something was wrong with my mom, more so than just regular old age stuff or just her asthma that I've been observing and looking at my entire life with her. The Afib is new. That was diagnosed just a year and a half ago, which was one of the reasons why I wanted her to move in with me. My dad in the Parkinson's was also only diagnosed a year and a half ago, but it is at a stage right now where he's probably been suffering from it for 10 years. But they didn't live with me. The business with my dad wasn't as active. I wasn't spending as much time with them as I had in the past. And I saw their health just slipping through the cracks. Now, I made adjustments. I am not a victim of this. I am pleased to be able to offer this for my parents and bring them home with me and closer to additional family members. But I did want to be authentic and transparent with you because it's okay for you to let your staff know that you've got some stress. It's okay to be authentic with them and allow them to feel that they have a safe place in their work environment to admit this. Now, do we let it implode our entire work world? Well, no, not necessarily. We have to choose which one's important and which not. And that's why I wanted to bring up that, I did have to take 2 days this week and deal with the medical situation with my parents. Fortunately, I'm self-employed and I can do that. But all of the other arrangements I had to make them myself. I don't have an assistant to do all of those things. So, but on the other hand, I didn't want to cancel the grief class because that's important. Those people need this. They didn't sign up for this as a social engagement. And I needed it too. And I knew that I needed it. I knew also that just being there to support them was going to support me, but I also knew that business-wise, this distraction was going to be helpful. The thing about Badassery is having that self-awareness to know what you need and the emotional intelligence to understand it. And I do teach that. That is in the A in the Badass acronym in the License to be Badass program. So thank you for taking the time and just listening to this Fruitful Friday. I'm literally going to publish it the second I finish this up and kind of put all the elements together. That's how fast it was able to do it. I did this, mostly unscripted. I just wanted to be authentic with you and just say, if you want to live a successfully badass life, you got to hop on the bus to Badassville. It's not always a perfect journey. There are bumps in the road for sure. But when we ask for help, and we get the support, and that includes practicing using the tools that we've been given and remembering that they exist. Instead of letting our lives spiral out of control, put on the brakes, look for some help, pull yourself up out of it, get some anchors, and then we'll continue on this badass journey together. That is Kelly Orchard's Fruitful Friday and weekend vibes for you. Go out and do some self-care because I will. Well, I've actually got some podcasts to catch up on because I'm a little bit behind, but I'm actually looking for it because that's my creative outlet as well. It's not work to me. These podcasts are actually therapeutic for me. So thank you for being my therapist because you listened to it.
You've heard about the bus to Badassville. What happens when you find yourself aboard? Just what you'd hoped for. You will be given proven skills and drills that you use to flip your fears with powerful thinking ideas and take charge of a thoroughly badass attitude. The bus to Badassville is scheduled to come here for you. Pack your stuff. Remember, you have a free badass ebook coming when you drop in on licensed to be badass.com.